G'day, Chris. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good, Thomas. How are you, champion?
Excellent, man. I'm really excited because this is our first podcast of this series.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to do something with you because I think that over the years I've noticed how you sometimes think sideways and it's soft thinking too. It's not attacking kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And I really like that because
Thanks,
it allows people to really explore things rather than just having to be reactive in their answers.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's get a series of podcasts out, especially from our background. So let's talk about our background first so that we can get our listeners to understand where we're coming from.
Yeah. Look, I'm also very excited for this podcast. It's going to help a lot of people, I believe. And before my journey started into sales, I wish I had the opportunity to listen to things like this because I do hope it's going to help some people in the future. But my background, I was very blessed as a child, a normal childhood, mum and dad and 3 kids growing up in the inner west in a suburb called Croydon Park. And we didn't have a luxurious life, but we never went without. And, very stable family. So I was never had any left or rights like a lot of people do, no highs or real lows. But and then, went through quite a few jobs and ended up in the building industry for 22 years.
Yeah.
And at 37 or 38 years of age, I think it was, I realised I couldn't do cement rendering, which I was doing for another 22 years.
Yes.
Because just my body wouldn't be able to take it. My shoulder was already going, my knees, my back. So I thought I always liked negotiating. And I had been building people's houses, and I previously, about 2 years previous to the change, I had bought a house, and I thought all the agents that I had dealt with, apart from maybe 2, were terrible. And I thought, if these monkeys can do it, I can do it. Yeah. So I thought, why not? At that time, I was dealing with an agent in Bankstown and reached out and got an interview and worked with that office for the following 14 years, working amazing. My way up to their sales manager and their auctioneer and so forth. And so I've had a very good, I was very fortunate to come into the franchise under yourself and your guidance, which was great. I don't think a lot of people do have that opportunity when they come into sales or into real estate. So I feel I've been blessed, luckily, to come and being guided the right way.
Yes.
I still don't get it right, mate. I mean, there's still a lot I can learn, right? But
nobody does. So
that's my background, mate.
Anybody who says that they got it right, they already lied. So we know that. What I think the great things about you is that you have gone through sales. So you were a salesperson. Then you became a manager.
Yep.
So you were a manager for, 6-7 years?
Yeah, I think a bit longer than that, actually. Yeah.
Okay, and then now you run your own show.
Yep.
So I think that you have a real large array, a big array of advice on this series of podcasts. And this series of podcasts is about sales success. So what does it take and all the tips about sales and selling, okay?
Yep.
Now, as for me, it's very simple. I've spent all my entire life in sales, from the first job to now. So from insurance sales to property sales or small goods sales when I first started, I really realized that selling is a great career because you do selling at work, but you also do selling at home. You do selling with your spouse, you do selling with your children. And I think that where else can you get into an industry and learn the skill that you're going to be using for the rest of your life in every field?
Yep.
Right? And this is why it's fantastic. Now, we have a reason for doing this.
Absolutely.
So let's share. What's your reason for?
So we're not giving up our own time for nothing, right? And that's the whole crux of it. Why do I do this? It's probably there's quite a few reasons. And I was thinking about this once we decided to do the podcast, and I thought it was a very brief topic to hit. And then when I thought about it, I've gone, there's a lot of reasons. Number one, I get to hang out with a mate and you chat and talk about some stuff that we may not normally talk about.
Yeah.
And in detail, and probably to things we're both interested in. So that's one of the main things. Another one is often we don't know what we've forgotten.
Right.
Until we're reminded of it. And it can come up in different parts, or we know it, but we go, maybe I should be taking my own advice here.
Oh, that's nice.
Right?
Yep.
And because I'm humble enough to say that, yes, while I've started as a salesman, then manager, and then still run my own show, there's a heap of I'm not doing which I should be doing.
Right.
And it may be a lot very self-serving as well.
That's very humble.
There's also the part where I hope this reaches people that it will benefit. As I said to you previously, I wish I had these sort of podcasts. When I first started in real estate, I could turn them on and just listen to really basic, straightforward information, and understand that everyone's at different levels within their career, and we'll get into that in other podcasts. But I really hope that us breaking down the salesperson's journey through real estate will help someone, whatever point they are at their real estate career, or a sales career.
Yes.
And we're going to revert to real estate all the time because that's the industry we're in. But effectively, as you said, sales is sales.
Oh, absolutely. Sales is everywhere. I mean, I, for myself, have spent over 35 years in sales and in sales training and sales management. And so I know there's a lot of information we have available. And I think it's time now where it's not that we've never paid it forward, but it's time to really pay it big time forward. I think it's time to give back, to equip maybe the people who are seeking a career in sales, maybe save them time. Why do you have to take the same amount of time to make the same amount of mistakes? Why not just leapfrog the people who've made the mistakes and use the times that you have to make new mistakes?
What's that saying? Don't become a giant, find a giant and stand on their shoulders.
That's correct, yes.
Right?
And in that way, I think what excites me is to be able to save people time.
Yep.
And when you save them time, you save them life.
You know, the other thing Thomas said, the recorded voice will always outlast both of us.
Right.
We've got more sunsets behind us than we have in front of us, realistically speaking. And if in 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, if this podcast is still there and someone's listening, managed to stumble over it, whatever, and it helps that person in time, I think that's a very, I'm not going to say romantic sort of concept to be thinking about, but I like to think that is a possibility.
That's nice. Oh, well, you're romantic for sure. Now, I also want to do, in saving time, it's not just about saving time, learning new skill. What I like to achieve through this series of podcasts is to really help people identify whether they have the gift of selling.
Yeah.
After 35 years, I can now see people who, yes, can do sales, and people who are natural born salespeople. Mm-hmm. They have different attributes. It's a little bit like, I know I'm okay in sales, but if I was to become crazy and wish to become a ballet dancer, I hope that someone who's into ballet dancing, right, was honest enough to share with me some of the attributes I need for me to realize that maybe it's not for me, right?
Just want to clarify, you said ballet dancing, not belly dancing,
no,
right?
Ballet dancing.
Ballet dancing, right. No, just wanted to clarify that. I'll try and translate Thomas's innuendo sometimes.
Really, in the end, we live a short life, and every one of us can do anything.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury to try our hand at everything. And so if we can really help people identify through our series of sales podcasts, whether they have the gift for sales or not, we actually not killing their dreams. We actually help them identify that maybe they best suited for something else.
Okay.
Right?
You know, there's a lot of podcasts out there, mate. There's if you go on and you just type in sales, there's going to be a lot of podcasts that people can listen to in a lot of different real estate trainers and so forth. Is there a difference that you think that we're going to make that other podcasts won't?
It's a good question. It's the same way as when people ask me for a book. It's whether they're ready for that.
Yeah.
And there's a podcast for everyone. And there's a podcast for every season. A top-notch salesperson who's been selling for 30 years may not need one of the podcasts that we're going to do, which is how to prepare yourself for an interview. But they may find that their life is out of balance.
Yeah.
And that they need to really understand that maybe working on their own self, their own soul, is a prerequisite now for them to step up to the next level. Okay. And we're going to show them how. And we're going to share with them what it takes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's for everyone. Yes, people ask me, so what is a book I should read? And I'm going, hold on. How do I know? Until I know, what stage are you at? Are you suffering from fear of rejection? It's because it's one book. Are you having a problem with failing? Because then that's another book. Are you having a problem with connection with people? Those three things are very important in real estate. But unless I know where you're at, how can I recommend? And so there are training and there are podcasts out there that are about lines. And I believe that beginners need to really study lines.
Yep.
But then when you become an experienced salesperson, you're no longer onto lines. You must transcend that. Because lines, when you receive a line, it's like you receive a fish for the day. All you do is to feed yourself for the day. But if you've been taught the art of selling, the art of thinking and dancing, then it doesn't matter. You'll know how to fish for the rest of your life.
Right. You know, I'll bring you back to what you were saying earlier, introducing yourself. I think you were a little bit humble in that sort of beginning, because what you missed out is you've had a training organisation for quite a few years now.
Yep.
And you've probably had, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 trainees through your doors in the time. You've seen a lot of salespeople. You've also now got another podcast where you interview very high achieving salespeople and business owners. Isn't that right?
That's correct, yep.
So that also is going to bring a wealth of knowledge that I don't have, that I don't think a lot of real estate coaches or trainers in Australia would have, is because most people get to a point where they think they know it all. You're one of the people that I know is just a constant sponge. So for anyone listening to these podcasts, the information is coming from a sound background. It's not an overnight success that's putting their voice to a recording. This is coming from a deep-rooted sound, very well-educated background or device. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Thomas. It is without agenda. So the advice will always be in the best interest of the listener.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's very nice of you, mate. You did actually a better job than me.
We often talk ourselves down, right? It's our traits. Everyone often talks themselves down a little bit. But I thought that was very important to have people understand that a lot of trainers out there, they regurgitate information they've stolen from other people or they've heard from other people.
Right.
What you do, you generate your own thoughts on different topics. I would challenge most real estate trainers to come up against you in a conversation about sales and who comes off looking better. But I honestly think doing this podcast is going to be very beneficial to those who know you already, but those who come across our podcast to be able to listen to sound advice. That's probably one of the biggest things I think you can offer.
Yes, but also sometimes you know too much. And so you're also on the blinkers. You have blinkers on. And
you reflect, man.
And this is why sometimes you have to really open up your ears and really have a discussion. And this is what I like about discussing with you, because you're not a yes man. You just have a very nice way about asking a question, but then sometimes you just say the one line that can trigger me in a different direction. And I think that this is why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because I think that, yes, I can sit here and share my information, but it doesn't take people the same direction. Sometimes you need someone like you who knows how to ask the questions and redirect me. And so, yes, information is there, but it's going to be our conversation. And this is why I really like the title for this series of podcasts not to be only about sales success, but it's going to be conversation with Chris, and it's going to be something we just have conversation over the next few months, and share information about everything we know in sales, which is not much. That's why it only take a few months of podcast.
So the podcast is over, guys, and that's all we've got.
All right. So what's the vision that we have?
For myself, I would love to be able to be in front of, or in the car, the drive time, because our aim is to do them quite short. Our aim is to keep them to about 25, 30, 35 minutes.
Yep.
Because that's generally the travel time people most have in their car, so you can listen to one going to work or wherever. I'd love to be able to have these in the front of people who have just started their career in sales, or looking to get into sales, and then they can listen again and again and take little tidbits out, write notes while you're driving, but you understand what I'm saying. And then moving forward from that, those who have been in real estate for some time, and we'll get into those a little bit deeper in later episodes, but for people who may be stuck, maybe need a few pointers, maybe need to understand why they're struggling, or, why they're not happy, or is the job right for them? They've got that feeling. Because in real estate, it's a very, the attrition rate, the dropout rate is very, very high for salespeople.
Yeah.
And I'd like that to lower. But I think that to lower leaders also need to become better hirers, and they need to be able to say no to people who aren't the natural born salesperson or a good salesperson.
Yeah.
So I'd like to improve the real estate industry as an industry. But if we can help anyone that's in sales, it'd be fantastic. That's my vision for it. And that's only one of the reasons I do it, but also to get to hang out with you and talk about a subject that we're both passionate
that's
about.
Fantastic. My vision is that I'd like to help salespeople own their office.
Okay.
I think that there is a time when salespeople need to work for someone because they are mastering their craft, but that ultimate freedom comes from running your own show. Now, by that, I don't mean you go out by yourself, do some things. Sometimes it takes a partnership. Sometimes it takes different skill sets together, because then you don't have to be good at everything. But to reach that level where you co-own an office, you in partnership with someone and run your own show, I truly believe that this is then the ultimate of freedom. That's when you have freedom of choice, freedom of time, financial freedom, and ultimately freedom of emotion, freedom over your feelings. And so that is what I hope that our series of podcasts will help people who are starting, but would like to be with them until they reach freedom.
Yep.
All right?
Amazing.
So that tells us about now our aim. So, mate, I catch up with you soon for our first one.
Amazing. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Thomas.
Talk to you, Chris. You're with Chris Dinola and TL. Thank you.